Everybody, welcome to the podcast, to Fun Guys podcast. We have very special guests with you today. We have Yacoub Rabie, and we have our resident white man, Brent.
Erect, straight man.
Okay. Why did we let
We
the
need
white
some
man
context
talk?
for that.
You gotta give some context.
Yeah,
You
give
can't
some
leave me hanging.
context.
No, I'm leaving you hanging. but- Okay, explain why you are erect.
Well, because you guys looked up my name last night at Cosmic, and I guess according to whatever that website is, I'm an erect man,
Straight
straight.
man.
Some more context for you all. The etymology of the name Brent allegedly means, if you travel back far enough, means erect and proud.
Oh, yeah.
So that is Brent's name, erect and proud.
Super excited.
So our guest, Yacoub Rabie,
Why do you say it like you're from Transylvania?
because I am a vampire.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Okay, I apologize. Tell us how to correctly pronounce your name, as well as a little history about you. You are my cousin, so fun fact.
I am.
You are my cousin, and we're excited to talk with you about a multitude of things. I think you're one of the wisest and most well-educated people in the space of the Middle East that I've ever met. And so I think getting to hear your story, as well as what you've seen traveling back and forth between the U.S. and the Middle East for so many years, is going to be a real treat. So give us a little nugget of who you are.
Thank you. And if I had known that you say these nice things about me in front of camera, then I'd have you in front of camera more often. So as Tony said, my name is Yacoub Rabie, and that's why I've changed my name for business reasons to be Jacob. And I have been living off and on between the U.S. and the Middle East, I guess, since 1988. Born and raised in Amman, Jordan. And in 1988 is when I got my green card. And that's why I came out here in the first instance, and eventually came out in 92 to go to university in Tacoma, Washington. And the journey started there, I guess. After doing 2 years at TCC, Tacoma Community College. I think they've changed their name now. They're called Tacoma College.
I think,
right?
just Tacoma College now.
Tacoma College.
No more community. They don't care about the community anymore.
Yeah, they want to be just a college.
Exactly.
I think it sounds more fancy.
Too
right?
big for their britches now.
Yeah. I went to Western for the BA, which is, I guess, what your dad did. He started out at, your dad, my uncle, he started out at TCC, went to Western, got a degree in accounting, and started working in downtown Seattle. Got a CPA, eventually got a master's in taxation, went to law school, and that was my professional life out here well, not here, in the Pacific Northwest.
Mhm.
Now I am in the Middle East. I've been back in the Middle East since 2008. Hard to believe.
Mhm.
So now I am all over the Middle East, I guess. I have a regional role, and I find myself traveling quite often, and that's what brought me here to Texas.
Well, I'm super glad you're here. Before we get into the full conversation, we have a very special bottle of wine that you have brought from Jordan. Can you give us a little context on the wine while we crack it open?
Yeah, sure. So this wine, Jordan River is, I guess, the commercial name. It is made by the Haddad family. And I guess you're pretty proud of that, Tony. You're
Pretty proud. Tell everybody what it
relatives
means.
from the Levant.
What does it mean? What does the name Haddad mean?
So Haddad, the Christian Levantine family of Haddad, I think if they are not the largest, then they're one of the largest Christian Levantine families.
Yeah, no big deal. We're taking over.
Well, not really, but tell yourself that.
I will.
Yeah. The word Haddad in Arabic also means smith or blacksmith. However, it's not where the name derives from. The Haddad family's name comes from Haddad, which was one of the ancient gods of the Levant, and he was the god of thunder. So the Haddad family of the Levant are descendants of who used to be high priests of Haddad.
So Havant is Christian Havant.
Levant.
Levant. And so
Levant is what is the area that historically encompassed Jordan, Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon. And the greater Levant can be drawn in a way to include the Sinai as well, sometimes Cyprus, and sometimes part of Iraq. It just depends on who's drawing the map and during which historical period. But that area, the countries of ancient Syria, so the Syriacs, that's the Levant.
Oh, very interesting.
That's the Syriacs, or the Syriac language, is the language that was essentially spoken by Jesus as well. Aramaic, Syriac, they are from the same language or families.
Mm-hmm. So Hadad, the high priest, the god of thunder, the Arab
Well,
Thor.
Hadad is the god of thunder, and the Haddads of today were priests.
Okay, got you. So hairier Thor, basically.
Yeah, you're like a descendant of you're the Arabic Thor, perhaps.
Perfect. Yeah,
if that's what you're fishing for.
Say that again. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, so this wine. Have you had this before?
I have.
Okay, cool. I'm excited to taste it. What I'm curious about is the Hadad lineage comes from. So our family line comes from the Ghassanids, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that and sort of like the history of where that flows?
Sure.
And cheers, by the way.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers.
Great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you.
Satain.
بصحتكم. So the Levantines are an interesting mix of people, and this is why it's an interesting part of the world with a lot of rich history and, unfortunately, a lot of conflict, as we all know. But the Christians of Jordan and Palestine specifically, the vast majority of the Christians of Jordan and Palestine identify as Arab Christians. And the majority of the Arab Christians, especially in the Levant, trace back to the Ghassanids, who are an Arabic tribe that belong to the Qahtani, large Arabic tribe. So Arabs are known to be either from Qahtan or Adnan. And the Ghassanids were descendants of Qahtan, and they were the largest Christian tribe in the Levant. You will find that, for example, a lot of the Lebanese Arabs, not all of them, but a large number of the Lebanese Arabs will tell you that they are not necessarily Qahtani or Ghassanids, that they are of Phoenician descent, which means that they are originally not necessarily Arabs, but Syriacs, pre-Islam. You will find that a lot of the Iraqi Christians, if not all of the Iraqi Christians, will say we are Syriacs or Chaladians, who are also natives of that part of the world. However, the Christians of Jordan and Palestine are descendants of the Ghassanids. But then nothing is pure in that part of the world, right? Everybody's just a mix of everything. But that's where the roots come from.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Islam, and I think what I'm curious about, I haven't spent much time around a lot of Islamic people, but I know there's a lot of, I guess, people have their own connotations of Islam. And I think a lot of it stems around women are very repressed and oppressed in a way. Is that true from what you've seen in terms of like women in marriage and things like that? Or what are some things in Islam that people have misconceptions around?
Oh boy, that's a super wide topic, Tony. I don't even know where
you just opened it up.
I don't know where to start. Of course, it's a generalization, and it's very unfair.
Uh-huh.
It's like trying to label Christianity or Buddhism or any other religion by any one label, and you can't. And you'll find that there are adherents of that faith that have very different perceptions of the faith itself and the practices and how strictly they interpret it, depending on the jurisprudence, the religious jurisprudence that they choose to subscribe to. But it's definitely unfair to say that all women are repressed or that they don't have rights. I think we're I'd like to think that we're past that point. Islam is a lot more complicated than to just say it's that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's interesting because last night you showed us some videos of you were in Iraq and videos of you were at some event or something. And in media, obviously in media, they're going to portray whatever they want to portray. But Iraqi women are always, covered and things like that. But the videos that you showed, they're just wearing normal clothes. They're out there having fun. And I don't know, I would love to see a movie where they actually portrayed the Middle East as more accurate with the way things are in reality.
That's systematic. I think the Middle East is time and again being misrepresented in Hollywood, in the media. Maybe it's something that's starting to change, but definitely we are in the infancy stages of change, if that is in fact happening. The region is very diverse. It's complex and diverse, culturally and religiously, which is unfortunately not what comes out in mainstream media.
Yeah. You said that you can't see yourself living back in the U.S.
Well, it's complicated. How's that? Status. It's complicated.
There you go.
I think in life, what I've learned is it's all about stages. Stages, phases. And what works for a person during a certain phase of their life doesn't necessarily work for them in another phase of their life. So being in the US for as long as I was, when I was younger, was, I think, great. And it was during my formative years, and it was, it had a huge influence on molding me, in making me who I am. Quite often when I'm in Jordan or in the Middle East, everybody calls me the American. And they joke about the fact that I am, in my thinking and in my disposition and in mannerisms, that I'm more American than anything else.
Have you ever felt like a half-blood?
I wouldn't say that. It's not about being half-blood, but it's always been a struggle for me. I guess in that I've always found myself to be part of not part of the mainstream. Growing up in a small Christian family of Palestinian origin in Jordan, and then coming out to the U.S., where you have theoretically a Christian majority, but then here you're not necessarily a local either, irrespective of how long you've lived. It's always in the back of your mind. Like, who are you? Where do you belong? Where do you come from? And maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on these issues, but it's our world is still, I think, too polarized, which makes these issues bubble up to the surface.
Why do you think the Middle East is better now for this phase of life that you're in?
Being now, when we moved out there, not thinking that we were going to end up living there as long as we did, it was a new phase, a new stage in our life as a family. My wife had just had a baby. Another one was on the way. Being back there meant that we had a whole lot of help, that it takes a village concept between grandmas and aunts and uncles and help. We got cousins, just cultural familiarity, linguistic familiarity, them being able to pick up a language, an extra language, goes a long way as well. So it made a lot of sense to have them grounded in a culture that they come from. But they're also Western looking, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. The boys still, I have two boys, so they always start the day, if it's sports season, irrespective of the sports, they come over to talk about the Seahawks, for example, and they say, we did this or we did that, or it's the same with the Mariners, or recently it was the NCAA tournament, so they were following both Gonzaga and Wazoo. So
they feel very
Washingtonian, not just American. They feel very Washingtonian as well, which is my influence, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. What do you think of the wine?
It's nice, but
Yeah.
I've had it before. The question is, what do you guys think of the wine?
It's very smooth. It's very nice flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not too sweet.
It's the Haddad.
It's the Haddad touch, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty
Always
perfect.
smooth.
Yeah.
What are the main differences you see between the Middle East and the U.S. since you've moved back and forth so many times?
It's an unfair question, Tony, because I haven't lived, quote unquote, lived in the U.S. since 2008. I think both places have moved on. Both places have changed so much.
Moved on
From what they used to be and are now very different from what I had known them to be. So the U.S. now to me is very different from the U.S. that I left in 2008. Definitely very different from the U.S. that I had known when I started coming out here in late 80s, early 90s. The Middle East, it doesn't take a Middle East expert or a connoisseur to tell you that the Middle East has changed quite a bit. Look at Dubai, for example, what Dubai has become. Everybody knows what Dubai is. A few years back, that wasn't the case. Right now, it's perhaps the number one tourist destination in the entire world.
Why do you think that is? Why are so many people because I know a ton of people who have moved to Dubai or are visiting Dubai.
Why do people move anywhere? Opportunity. Yeah. That's what it is for me. I think that's talking to people there. It's opportunity. It's a place that's made itself a magnet for people to be who they want to be. And it's a place that's got a dynamic economy. And they are pretty good at not putting limits on anything. You know, it's the mentality of you dream it, we'll make it. So I think that's why people go there, because of the opportunity. And Saudi's up and coming as well right now. The Saudi's changing quite a bit. They've, relaxed a lot of the restrictive rules that used to be the norm for so many years. The leadership there has very ambitious plans. I'm sure you've heard about what NEOM is, the project on the Red Sea, and the line, which is part of NEOM. And
I know the line, but I don't know NEOM.
NEOM is the name of the larger project, and the line is just one of the projects within NEOM.
What else are they doing?
They're building ski resorts. In Saudi. They're building man-made islands that are going to have certain ecosystems special to them. Green cities. I don't know enough to tell you about all of the projects under NEOM, but these are a few examples.
But they're putting that oil money to good use.
Yeah. That's exactly what some of the countries there are trying to do, is to diversify the economy so they're not dependent on oil and gas.
Yeah.
At least not fully dependent on oil and gas.
Yeah.
Is it more of an international city, or the way you do business is more of a way you would do business in the Middle East? Like, is it kind of a little bit
Dubai
of
now? The question back to Dubai. It's an international city. So it's the United Arab Emirates has 7 emirates. One of them is Dubai. And Dubai itself has several special economic zones. So they have the mainland laws, which are more of what you described as Middle Eastern. And then you have the special economic zones that have more international laws, primarily based on English common law. So the Dubai International Financial Center has laws that are based on English jurisprudence, on English common law. And they done that on purpose to be a business hub. And Saudi is doing similar things as well right now. They have a regional headquarters initiative, the RHQ. They have a massive economic city in the heart of Riyadh. So it's not just Dubai. Dubai, I think, started earlier than everybody else, so it's got a head start.
When was like the conception of building what they're building in Dubai? Do you have like an idea of like, because I remember a long time ago, 10 years ago, I wanted to go there as a trainer. And then before that, you would just see little glimpses of construction. You're like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen here. Do you remember that? There's little things kind of going up, like and you'd see in the U.S. and you're like, that's interesting. And I think it's like a theme park that's been being built for so long, and now everyone's like, let's fucking go, right? And I think what's enticing about it is just they're allowing, it seems, based on what I see, creativity to flourish. Let's try fucking architecture. Let's try this. Let's try that, right? And really take care of a city. That's my outside perception. So it seems like, yeah, this is a place where people are creative and doing business, which is very exciting.
Yeah, Dubai is one of 7 emirates that make up the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. But even before that country was established, which was in 1971, by the way. So it's not
brand new.
It's brand new, exactly. It's a new country. Dubai, when it was an emirate, was always a trading post. The Dubaians are known for having always been traders. They traded across the Gulf and across the Indian Ocean, and they were not dependent on oil and gas money. The coming together of the Emirates helped because Abu Dhabi is the largest of the Emirates, and it has the most amount of money. And they're the ones that have been able to, I think, back up the rest of the Emirates, including Dubai, in accomplishing what they've been able to do. So it's been gradual, but I'd say the past 20 years or so have been the years during which Dubai has launched itself into what it is today.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially to watch where it goes in another 10 years.
Yeah, Dubai seems to reinvent itself every 7 to 10 years anyway. So yeah, that's a correct assessment.
What would you say some of your favorite things are about that city? Just like the top 2, 3, you're like, this is amazing that this is going on in a city.
Just the pace at which everything happens. And the fact that it seems that they've, I don't want to use the word liberalized, but they've opened things up in a manner, as one of you said just now, allows innovation and allows people to test the limits. It feels like every time you come to Dubai, something new's come up. You know, it's created a lot of new money, so to speak. It's created a lot of millionaires out of nothing. It's maybe in a way what the United States once was, a land of opportunity.
That's what it kind of reminds me of. It's got that fresh energy of just like, come on in and let's fucking do this.
That's what it seems like. They're at the forefront of technology too. They have the like the Dubai Tech Conference where they have the newest AI, robotics, all these things are really pushing forward.
I think it's exciting for the Middle East to have all that energy going on. That's cool.
Finally, we'll be portrayed in movies as scientists and not terrorists. That'll be huge.
Unless the Chinese take over everything and then they just still make you look like whatever, because they're making all the Hollywood movies now.
But then you'll have Chinese.
Not even the U.S.
You'll have Chinese people playing Arabs, and that'll be pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean AI already basically says black people were Nazis. So
what?
Yeah, Google's AI, they got in huge trouble because when you typed in like show me pictures of Nazis, it'll show like an Asian person, a black person, and it will do this with anything you pick. You could say, show me an Arab person. They might show multiple different races because it's somebody in it.
Some liberal was like, you need to be
Someone explained it to me either like the team knew, but everyone was too afraid to say shit, or it wasn't worked out the kinks. It's probably the first one. So Google's in a lot of shit for that.
Weird.
Yeah, pretty funny.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Okay, what? Yeah. Go for it.
I insist.
I lost my question.
Okay. Well, I'm curious of this because this is one thing I really wanted to talk to you about because there's so much, I guess, I don't even want to say so much misinformation. I think there's just a lack of information on the history of Palestine itself. And without getting into current topics and, the current state of affairs, what's the history of Palestine and how did it originate?
Oh my God, that's the most loaded of all loaded questions.
I love these loaded questions.
That's a 10-hour podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
This will be part 1 of 12.
Yeah.
Where do you
Yacoub
begin?
will be back. I guess the ultimate question is the state of Palestine, where, like, who originated it? Like, somebody had to found it, or a group had to found Palestine.
Well,
I know it goes back to like pre-biblical, but still.
Palestine is a name that was used at a certain point in time in history to refer to that land between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River. So it had a whole lot of civilizations and peoples that have lived on that piece of land throughout history. And it was known by many names, and it wasn't always just one single state. You know, this modern state concept in the Middle East is a fairly new invention. If you look back historically, it was just regions, or it was cut up in certain way for the larger state that controlled that part of the world to administer that part of the world. I don't want to be controversial here, but some people might venture to say that the only current nation state in the Middle East is Egypt, because that's really the Egyptians in Egypt since forever ago.
Right.
But again, topic for debate. The piece of land, again, between the Mediterranean and the Jordan River, that was historically referred to as Palestine, including in the Bible, it is what gave the Palestinians their name. But throughout history, there have been a lot of tribes, a lot of different groups of people that lived on that piece of land. The Phoenicians in the north and in the southern part of Lebanon. You've got Canaanites, you've got Moabites, you've got Syriacs. So it's always been a very diverse part of the world. These current labels of Palestinian or Jordanian or Syrian or Lebanese, these are modern creations that came about after World War I, when the Ottoman Empire, who had lost World War I to basically the British and the French. It was the Germans and the Ottomans that lost World War I to the British and the French. They lost their control over that part of the world, because at the time the Ottomans, or current day Turkey, used to control, or politically control, that part of the world. And to the victors go the spoils, right? So what the victors did, the British and the French, they divided the lands of Ottoman Middle East amongst themselves. This is why you'll find that historically the Lebanese and the Syrians are Francophone, whereas the people that lived in Palestine and the Transjordan speak English as a second language rather than French. This is why Egypt and the Sudan had English as a second language, whereas in Tunisia and Algeria and Morocco, it's French. And Iraq, it was also being ruled by the British, so that's why English was the primary language. So I know that's long-winded, but that's getting back to your question about the label of Palestine and how it came about in modern times. So after 1917, it was referred to as the British Mandate of Palestine.
Right. Yeah, it's such a loaded question, I know, because the hard thing is trying to think of real questions to ask around it, because there's so much history involved within the country.
True, but I mean, you can be factual at the same time, right? Our grandparents ended up being Jordanian because in 1948,
the Nakba.
the Nakba, the Palestinian, the Nakba is the Arabic word for catastrophe. In 1948, upon the creation of the State of Israel, that's when our grandparents were made to leave Palestine, or the British Mandate of Palestine, and they ended up in Jordan as refugees. This is how we ended up becoming Jordanians. So the Haddad family that you belong to is from Nazareth, which is now the largest, not anymore largest, second largest, I guess, Arabic city within the state of Israel. So I don't know if many people know, but there are over 1 million Arab citizens of the state of Israel. And until recently, Nazareth was the largest of those cities. So the family comes from Nazareth. Your grandpa Haddad was born in Haifa during the British Mandate of Palestine. And your grandma was born in Jerusalem. But they were living in the city of Ramle in 1948, and that's where from they left during the war to go to Jordan.
So being from Nazareth, is there a chance that I'm a descendant of Jesus?
Yes.
Legitimate question.
Yeah, especially looking the way that you do right now. Yeah, of course.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends on what you want to believe, Tony. You are definitely related by blood.
There we go.
But the people of that part of the world are all the original people of that part of the world are all Semites, irrespective of their religion. Jews, Christians, Muslims, they're Semitic people. So we're all related.
True.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So Palestine no longer under any sort of British mandate?
No, that ended in 1948.
What caused the end?
Another loaded question. So the Balfour Declaration was the declaration by which the British promised that land for the establishment of a Jewish state. And since that point on, a lot of events took place that culminated in Israel declaring independence in 1948. So that's when the troubles had already been underway, but that was towards the end of the worst of the skirmishes of the wars, and that culminated in the declaration.
So England was in control of Palestine at the time.
The British.
Okay. Yeah. So the British were in control. They decided, let's allow some of this land to be for a Jewish state.
Well, it's more complicated than that, because the partition of Palestine was done at the League of Nations, and it didn't happen just overnight. There was a 1947 partition plan, and that was rejected by the Arabs because they didn't accept that they were having to give up too much of the land. And then the 1948 partition plan was much worse. That was forced upon them, and that's what ended up creating the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza.
So Israel was then founded in 1948?
As a state?
As a
current state, it was.
Right, as a current state. And that was immediately when the Nakba happened. So Israel comes into like their own statehood. And then how does that translate immediately to the catastrophe?
That is because the events leading up to the creation of the State of Israel is when the worst of the wars were happening.
Okay, so wars were already happening.
Skirmishes that were getting increasingly worse, and then the attacks got so bad that people were being forced out of their homes, out of their villages, and they needed to go run for safety. That's why you'll find that many of the Palestinians that lived in the north ended up in southern Lebanon or in Syria. The vast majority ended up in Jordan, and the ones that were closer to the Egypt border ended up in Gaza.
Gotcha. Okay. So these skirmishes are already happening. Israel then gets its statehood, essentially. And do you feel like that gave them, was it like they got more confidence now, or they decided, okay, now we're a state, we can up level our, skirmish tactics?
Then that's a very, very loaded question, Tony. I think we need a full week to talk about this this topic.
All right, we'll buy extra time at the studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they as a state were never alone. The support they've had was always there from the West, primarily the British and the French, and then later on the United States.
Interesting. Cool. Wow. Yeah, it's definitely a loaded topic, and it's controversial as well, and everyone has their opinions and their takes on how they want to perceive it too.
I think it's one of those things where it's like, in some ways, it's impossible for even just a basic person, like even in the US, to ever understand, because you would have to probably take so many lessons and studying things, and even probably down to that grain, there's differentiators of people's thoughts and opinions, right? So it's like,
especially for your average American that comes at it from.
It's the same when the U.S. goes into a country and tries to go to war, and they think they understand something, and they have no idea. Even though they think they do and they've studied it, things are so nuanced to such degrees. It's like that's why it's like, to be such a strong opinion, if you like just a random guy like me, is kind of dumb. You need to take in a lot of information.
Absolutely. That's what you should do with everything that you don't know enough about before formulating an opinion very strongly and then advocating that opinion. But the issue of Palestine/Israel is so controversial, and it touches people's emotions in a way like no other because of the biblical connotations. And let's not forget that this country has always been a bit religious. It was started by Puritan immigrants to the New World. It always had that undertone to the foundation of the country. And the story that most American Christians have grown up with is a certain biblical story that casts Israel in a certain light and associates the word Israel and the Israelites with a certain group of people, when it also, from the Bible itself, casts the Palestinians or the Philistines in a different light. And that makes it a lot easier for your typical American Christian to associate with the Israeli narrative rather than the Palestinian narrative. So to your point, Brent, yes, it needs for a person to be a lot more educated to get to understand both the biblical history and the current history, and to try to bring those together, to reconcile those together before formulating any opinion about the current events.
I think the first step for like a U.S. citizen is just to go visit an Arab country, because I feel like you could learn all these things you're saying and study it, but when you go to a place and you're around the people, you realize how much you've been portrayed a different vision of what it really is. And that's like the first opening, I think, for a lot of people. So I think that travel for a lot of people is super important. I remember when I traveled, I don't know, it was a long time ago. I must have been 25, so 15 years ago. Everyone was like, don't go over there. Iraq's at war. And it was like Bush was president. It's like so crazy. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go find out. Let's just go fucking find out. And everyone was so worried. My parents were like, don't go. I mean, they're fear mongers of me walking down the street. So it's like nothing personal. It's just don't go anywhere, basically.
Their parents.
Yeah. And they're like, they see war in that area. Don't go to that area. And they don't travel much. So it's like, when you don't travel much, your perception of how the world is very strange.
And you just trust the news.
Yeah. And it's your kid. So you're like, just stay in your house, watch movies, eat some popcorn, chill out. And I was like, fuck it, I want to go check this place out. And I was like, this place is fucking cool. This is a magic in the Middle East. And I want to explore a lot more of it.
Where did you go?
I was in Egypt and Jordan, but I remember watching an episode of Anthony Bourdain when he visited Iran and just how amazing it was. And the people in Iran and just the food and the hospitality. Yeah. I think there's magic everywhere. And I think that brings more of the humanness.
You're absolutely spot on, Brent. And you'll realize that people have a lot more in common than there are differences.
At the basis, as human beings, we have the same values if you dig deep enough to the core.
Absolutely.
Family, love, respect for one another, community, all of that.
And you'll find that there's good people and bad people everywhere you go. You can't just put a label on an entire nation or race or ethnicity or a political affiliation and say all those people that belong to that are good or bad.
Exactly. Like I make fun of China all the time, but I know Chinese people are super dope. It's just sometimes the government or little weird things that happen. But every place, there's amazing humans.
Because it's usually not the people themselves, it's the governments that we end
That
up
are-
having an issue with.
Or people of power playing fucking games, manipulating everybody.
Absolutely correct. Some of the most impressive and hopeful human rights activists, folks that talk about the rightful actions that should be taking place in the Holy Land, folks that talk about equality and talk about respect for humanity, irrespective of who the person is or where they come from or their religion, are Israeli activists. So even if you find yourself, for example, subscribing to the Palestinian narrative, you cannot say that all of what the Israelis are saying is against my ethos. There are wonderful Israelis that are just perhaps at the forefront of espousing those ideals that I think we share based on the conversations that I've had with you two.
I think this is why podcasting is so important, because it allows someone that probably would never have a long conversation with you, or maybe be afraid to have a conversation with you, hear you express your views and your thoughts and your opinions in a long form to actually get to know you as a human being, right? Where if someone interviewed you on the local news, it's a 30-second, cut it how they want, soundbite it, and then they can label you however you want. So it's like more conversations, long form, and then you're like, oh, he's a human being. He's a complex individual, and I get him and I connect with him, and now I understand more. And then it starts to change people's minds.
To be fair, we are going to make 1-minute clips and we are going to edit it.
Hell yeah.
However, people do have an opportunity to watch the long form content as well, which you do not have on the news. You can't go watch the raw footage of an interview on the news. So podcasting does have the upper hand in that sense.
And this has become quite powerful as a medium. I think less people are watching the news. Less people are giving.
This is becoming the mainstream.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people are getting their information from podcasts, from social media, from these more independent sources like this, which can be dangerous because everybody has an opinion. But at the same time, people will tend to flock to things that they resonate with. And hopefully, I like to trust that humanity will flock to the things that have some substance and some power behind them, as opposed to just listening to whatever's entertaining out there.
But that's at the heart of American ideals, right?
Yeah.
It's freedom of speech. Yeah, you give people the freedom to say what they think, and then you give the listeners the freedom to discern and to go through the facts and then decide for themselves.
Let the market decide.
I would say what people listening to this never thought about traveling to the Middle East or given much thought out of whatever they see on the news. What would you like those people to know about the Middle East? Like Palestinian people, you're like, my Palestinian neighbor, he's a dope guy. This is why he's cool. Because I don't really know much about Palestinian culture, so I'm asking for myself too. But I think I represent a lot of people that don't know shit. You know what I mean?
Palestinian culture is a subset of the Levantine culture that's a subset of the larger Arabic culture, and to a large extent, although it's pretty diverse, it's also influenced by the Islamic culture that has become the majority in the Levant itself. So it is a very rich and diverse history. That is of the Palestinians. It is a history that is thousands of years old. The city of Jericho in Palestine is one of the oldest, most continuously inhabited places on the face of the earth. So it predates Judaism and obviously Christianity and Islam. There are a lot of contributions that have been made to the sciences, to the arts, by Palestinians that people don't know enough about, and not just Palestinian Americans, but those as well. So I think just with anything else, China, Palestine, or anywhere that you don't think you know enough, just pick up a book or go to a reputable source of information and get to know the culture and its history and its complexity. And before formulating any opinion about Palestinians or Israelis, read and educate yourself, talk to people. And then I think everybody will be better off for it.
That's wise
Beautiful.
words. Awesome.
I think that's a beautiful place.
I got one more question.
You didn't let me finish. That's a beautiful place to ask one more question.
Oh, I thought he was going to end it. I was like, I cut him off.
Maybe two more
My
questions.
last question is, when we come visit you, take me through, I get off the plane. What are we doing on that first day? I got one day with you and you're going to show me Jordan.
Just Jordan in one day, or just
Yeah.
No, you need more than a day for Jordan. You're
I
going
know,
to spend a day eating.
Or just, walk me through like the beginning of the day and you can talk about what we do the next couple days.
Okay.
Whisk me through the adventure.
Well, you'll be probably coming with Tony, so most likely I'll pick you up from the airport. By the time we arrive at home in Amman, my mom has already cooked up a storm, and there's going to be a feast.
There'll be a full table.
The feast of the dishes that Tony wants to eat.
Amazing.
And so you're going to have...
I'll fast for 30 days before I come.
And you'll still have food coma afterwards. So between the food coma and the jet lag, I think your first day is shot.
Yeah. Okay, toast. Okay, so first day...
It's eat and nap is your first day.
Yeah, I take a nap. Okay.
Then the next day, since you don't have much time, and if we just keep focused on Amman, the capital city, then you need to go down to the old city, the old downtown.
Yeah.
So you can see the Roman amphitheater, the citadel, just walk around the old souks, get to see the old part of the city, maybe do some street shopping, some eating on the streets. And then I think you'll probably be a bit tired from all of the walking around that you've done. If you come in the summer, it's going to be a bit warm as well. So that'll take some energy out of you.
Do you have a shout out to a favorite vendor or restaurant you like to go to?
Well, the tradition, of course, that down there is if you want the traditional Jordanian dish, mensaf, then you have to go to Al-Quds. Al-Quds, which means Jerusalem in Arabic. And then you need to have dessert or knafe at Habiba. Habiba
for knafe?
For knafe.
Okay.
Habiba.
Explain what's knafe.
Oh, what's knafe? We could have a whole episode on knafe, my friend.
I think you need to have a video to best explain.
We'll have a clip.
We'll put a video over the clip.
We'll edit it real fast.
You can explain knafe and we'll put a video in.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's a cheese-based dessert. So it's white cheese that is usually covered with shredded wheat. It's baked, and then it's drenched in a sugary syrup and sprinkled with usually pistachio nuts.
Beautiful.
It's shavings of pistachio nuts.
How would you describe the taste? Like as it sinks in, like the first sensation of the taste as it ends.
It's like a warm hug in your mouth.
Very nice, Tony.
Yeah.
Because it's coming out of the oven. It's cooked actually on an open fire, not the oven. But it's soft cheese. It's very it's comfort food. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's if the cheese is just right, then the cheese is not salty, obviously, but then the cheese is not sweet either. But the combination of the cheese and then the syrup with the topping, which is usually shredded wheat, it's just heaven in your mouth.
I gotta try it. I can't imagine what it.
There's a place here in Austin called Baklava House.
Okay.
Your sisters went. I'm gonna go and see. Well, I don't know. I'm gonna go see if they have knafe.
We had some in Houston.
We did have, and it was pretty good. And we ate it out of the back of my car.
Yeah, it was carnafe.
It was carnafe.
Yeah, carnafe.
Okay, one more question. Same question that Brent asked you about Amman, but we go to Dubai.
Oof. Dubai is become that place that's got something for everybody. It's so diverse. It just depends on what you want to do. Are you there for business? You want to see entrepreneurs? Do you want to see people in your same line of work or interest, such as in sales or in...
we want a party.
Oh, well, then that's off camera.
Sounds like, though, they have like incredible. Weren't they building an incredible soccer stadium and a training center for a team out there? I thought a long time ago they were building like a training center.
They have a soccer team, and they're paying some of the best athletes.
Now, you're thinking of Saudi.
Am I thinking of Saudi? That's right. And they're paying like insane contracts.
Yeah, the Saudi professional soccer league right now has got huge names.
That's right.
I'd really like to go visit Saudi Arabia. I'd like to.
You have to drive an Audi if you go to Saudi.
Okay, perfect.
Nice. I think it's an old video now.
It is. Saudis and Arudis.
I'm gonna fuck this up, but it was either a well-known basketball player or a football player. He went over there and he just moved over there. He's like, it's
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Is that who it was?
Yeah, he plays in Riyadh for Al Nassr club.
Really?
Yeah.
He left Brazil?
Cristiano Ronaldo was playing in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So he was with Real Madrid. Towards the end of his career, he went to a club in Italy. Who was it? Oh my God. I should know this. He went to, anyway, a club in Italy before he then went to Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Juventus. So after he started out at, well, big clubs wise, he was at Manchester United, then went to Real Madrid, and then went to Juventus. And from Juventus, he then went to Saudi Arabia to play for Al Nassr. And I think Neymar went there as well, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of big names are playing in Saudi Arabia.
Awesome. Well, Yacoub.
Yes,
we're
sir.
More than excited to come visit you.
Ahlan wa sahlan, which means you're welcome.
My land is your land.
It means you come as ahlan wa sahlan.
Ahlan wa sahlan.
Excellent. Yeah. The long version of that, halaltum ahlan wa wati'tum sahlan, which means you come as people and you step upon easy land.
Mm.
So that's one way. That's the old Arabic way to welcome somebody. That you're welcoming them into your home as your family, and they are to step easy, more or less.
Awesome. Well, shukran, Habibi.
عفوا حبيبي بصحتكم.
صحتكم.
Shukran.
أهلا. عفوا.